Everyone, welcome to the Elite Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Popple, along with my co-host, William McClellan. How you doing today, Will?
Dude, stoked as always. Wednesdays are the best days. I'm really excited for today, dude.
Yeah, no, today we got a solid entrepreneur on the show, so I'm really excited to talk to Jered Williams, who currently owns Dude Wash, but he also had an extremely successful plumbing and HVAC company that he previously sold. He was born and raised in Alaska and recently came down here to the Panhandle. He has a business mastermind, YouTube channel, and then is really blowing up his new business, Dude Wash. So without further ado, let's bring on Jered.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited to have Jered. So this is gonna be sick. What's up, man?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Dude, life's good. Life's good.
It's always good. It's getting warmer outside. That's always a good thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm actually curious. It's the warmest.
Not a cold weather guy. So Florida's all hot to you though, since you're from Alaska, right?
Florida's all hot. When I first moved down here, I thought, I moved down in the middle of the summer and was out on the beach, staying at the beach. And I walked out in, I got a cotton hat, cotton t-shirt, cotton pants, cotton underwear, cotton socks.
Sure.
And I walked out and I was like, man, I told my wife, we made a mistake. I can't do this. It's too hot. And
no way.
Here, 3 years later, I'm getting pretty used to it. I actually enjoy it. So
fair enough. You kind of worked away from the cotton, and
we did.
Least, yeah.
Yep. It was rough at first going because I still had my plumbing business when we moved down here, and I would have to travel between Florida and Alaska. Oh. Florida is real humid, and Alaska is real dry. And I would come to Florida from the dryness, my skin would get all oily. And then I go back to Alaska and my skin would get all dry. And then I come back to Florida, I'm all oily. I'm like always either too oily or too dry, one of the two.
Yeah, I bet it actually is probably a good balance for the skin. You're reverse aging then.
I don't know. Because I've been here for the last time I went to Alaska, it's been probably 7 or 8 months now.
Okay.
And it's like my skin is just now starting to figure out this Florida weather, Florida humidity.
So where in Alaska, just for the listeners, were you going back and forth from, and then where you grew up?
Yep. So I was going back and forth to Fairbanks, Alaska, where I grew up. It's right smack dab in the middle of Fairbanks. It's like the least beautiful spot in Alaska. It's
the least beautiful.
It's you drive 100 miles in each direction and you've got big mountains and big trees and all sorts of cool wildlife. And Fairbanks, it's down in the valley. And so there's a little bit of hill country, but it's fairly flat. There's still woods, there's still wildlife, but nothing like 100 miles each direction. But there's a river that runs through. So it was a natural spot to build a town.
Oh,
and that's why it's there.
Interesting. Yeah. Yep. So what was that like kind of growing up in Alaska? And I am curious, actually, what's your favorite part of Alaska?
My favorite. So there's a place, if you leave Fairbanks and you go down towards Denali, I don't know if it's called Denali anymore. They changed the name. Mount McKinley is what it was called when I was a kid, and then they changed it to Denali, and I don't know what it is now. But
wait, really?
There's a town. Oh. Yeah, there's a town just north of Denali. So Denali's a big tourist destination. You can go there and hop on a tourist bus and go do all this stupid crap, or you can go 15 minutes north of there. I go to a town called Healy. And there's a cool brewery there if you go in the summer called 49th State Brewery with really good burgers and really good beer. And then you can go hike all day. Don't have to get permits. It's a cool place. It's my favorite place ever.
Dude, that's epic. So you guys always do a summertime trip?
No, I'm never going back to Alaska.
Oh,
yeah.
No way. Okay.
But when I was in Alaska, I would go to Healy all the time. It was probably an hour and a half drive from my house. Go drive down there and spend the weekend hiking and sleeping in my van and eating burgers and drinking beer.
Yeah, it sounds
like a great time.
Amazing. Yeah. So what with that? Okay, hard. I'm never going back to Alaska.
Yeah.
Now you're in Florida. For the listeners, kind of help us grasp that. So you're born, raised in Alaska. Definitely want to hear the background and what that was like. Alaska, Hawaii. I think they're so far away. Sometimes people in their whole lifetimes will never get to see that. So definitely interested there. But then why Polo? Why the Panhandle? Why Florida?
Yeah. So growing up in Alaska is definitely different, right? I actually grew up, I was born in Fairbanks, lived there till I was probably 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a different town. There's no neighborhoods like there is here. We don't have houses all jammed together like there is here. Everybody's got 2 acres or more. You go out in the woods and you can not see a soul for weeks. You're just by yourself. You can camp wherever you want. You can start a fire wherever you want. You can shoot guns wherever you want. There's a freedom there that you don't have anywhere else in the United States. I've been all over the United States and it doesn't exist anywhere but in Alaska. I think that's why people like it. If you like getting out in the woods and 4-wheeling, and we call it snow machining, you guys might call it snowmobiling, and hunting. Yeah, and hunting and stuff like that, Alaska's the place for you. If you can handle the cold and the dark, it is the place for you. I spent like 3 or 4 years of my childhood in a place called Bethel. It's on like the west coast of Alaska. There's a real popular town called Nome.
Okay.
And I believe Bethel's just south of Nome. It's like inland up I think it's the Kuskokwim River. It's the biggest river in Alaska.
Oh,
and it's like a super small town. We would a bunch of native villages around there. And so we would spend our weekends boating on the river, catching salmon, hanging out at fish camp, gutting fish, living the Alaska life.
Dude.
And then, that was like growing up. And then at some point in time, we moved back to Fairbanks, and, it's expensive to live there. And so I graduated high school. I met my wife, had kids, and I became a plumber. Her dad was a plumber, so naturally I became a plumber. Construction's kind of a big deal there. And it's expensive to live there. And I got tired of being broke all the time. So that's when I was like, I'm going to start a business because I'm sick of being, poor all the time. And then once we kind of got the business going to where I wasn't needed to be in the business anymore, my wife has always wanted to move. And a few years before we moved, my parents had moved to Montana. My dad's from Kentucky, but my mom is from Montana, and her parents kind of retired in Montana on Flathead Lake. So we went down there. We spent a couple winters in Phoenix, thinking maybe we want to move to Phoenix. I like to mountain bike, and they have like an awesome mountain bike scene in Phoenix. Tons of trails. The winters in Phoenix are fabulous. It's like 60 to 70 degrees. The sun is always out. It's not super humid. It's like perfect weather. But what
about the 115 every day?
Dude, that's the thing. It's the 115. So we went on a snowboard trip in I can't remember the name of the town, just above Phoenix. I'm terrible with the name. If I have to think of a name, I'm never going to remember it. Anyway, snowboard trip just above Phoenix, like an hour north of Phoenix. We're snowboarding, and I got on the lift with a guy, and I said, "Hey, where are you from?" He goes, "Oh, I'm from Phoenix." And I said, "Cool. I want to move there. What are the summers like?" And he goes, "Dude, it's brutal." He's like, just imagine the dry. He said, "People say humidity is bad. They haven't been in dry heat in Phoenix." And I was like, and being from Alaska, our hottest days are like we might get 1 or 2 80-degree days in the summer.
Wow,
maybe.
Wow.
And we're so like it gets 80 degrees out, and everybody's in their shorts and flip flops and tank tops and sunbathing out in the sun. And but it's typically like 60, and I'm thinking I can't do 115 for 3 months and not go outside. I'm not going to be a happy camper. So my parents at the time are living in they're building a house in Montana on Flathead Lake. And I'm a plumber, and my dad was having a hard time finding a plumber. So we went there and helped him plumb his house. And we were talking to a good friend of mine who's actually down here in Pensacola now. And his wife said, "You should check out Pensacola. I always wanted to live there." And so we checked it out. This was kind of towards the tail end of COVID when there was the big housing boom. You guys probably loved it. houses were going for millions of dollars. And we had just sold our house in Alaska. We got like 48 offers. 3 of them were cash offers. We got $120,000 over asking. And so I'm thinking, okay, let's put in just a normal offer and nobody's going to take it. So we put in asking price offer on this house down here, sight unseen. And we were driving south out of Montana and we got a call from the realtor. He said, "Hey, you got your house." And we were like, "Cool, we're turning left."
Sick.
So we ended up in Pensacola, got down here, and like I said, went out to the beach because we thought that was the cool place to be, and got a hotel because we couldn't get in our house yet. And I thought, man, I made a giant mistake. It's freaking hot here.
That's freaking hot.
But it's been, I've learned to enjoy it here. I like it a lot, actually. It's a cool place.
It's totally a cool place. No, we're super, super happy to have you. It's cool to be able to have really successful, like, serial entrepreneurs that just have vastly different experiences, like being from Alaska, and like that's so unique and cool. And I know Sam and I will love to take you out to lunch and kind of pick your brain offline here too, because that, I've always wanted to check out Alaska. That's why I was asking some of those. Selfishly, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I got Healy down with a star on it. So
go in the summertime.
Yeah,
don't go in the wintertime.
Did you end up selling your business in Alaska prior to moving?
No, I sold it afterwards. So I ran it remotely for quite a while. I just sold it July of last year.
Okay.
Yeah. So I ended up
so about 2 years down here before you sold it.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow. So tell us about how you built that up.
And what was the landscape working remotely? I know you had mentioned kind of prior to that, going to Montana and Phoenix, you were able to step away and be outside of the business, which was nice, allowing you guys to kind of juggle, where you wanted to move next. But definitely interested on running a super successful business remotely.
Yeah, so it didn't start that way, I can tell you that.
Okay, I love that.
It started very scrappy. I started my first business, man, a long, long time ago. I would make, in Alaska, we have oil-fired boilers that shoots oil. It like atomizes oil into a box and lights it on fire, and that fire heats water, and then that water circulates through the home. It's called hydronic heating. Very popular in like northern states. Okay. Alaska is probably one of the few like oil rich towns. They don't have a bunch of gas where we were. So I would make these, I knew how to install these boilers and how to pipe them properly and how to size the pumps and all this kind of stuff. And it's a skill that I had learned. And so I started making these pre-made panels. It's probably really hard for anybody listening to this to imagine, but I would make these panels where homeowners who wanted to install their own boilers could buy my panel, and all they had to do was pipe the boiler to the panel, and then the registers that go throughout their house back to the panel as well. So I did like the majority of the hard work for them. There's a bunch of electrical and controls and things like that involved. And I would pre-make these and box them up and ship them out all over the United States. And I sold like, I don't know, 10 or 15 of these panels. It was kind of my first business. Got a first little bit of cash set aside. But the hard part about that business was that it's really hard to get in front of your customer. You have to get in front of somebody who's building a house, who wants to install their own boiler right at the right time. And there was no real good spot to get in front of them and let them know that you have a product available for them. So I managed to sell a few, but I took that cash and I was like, well, I have this cash now. Let me just start a local plumbing business. And so I started a local plumbing business with a partner of mine. It was called J&J Mechanical. The business is still around. He still runs it. And I quickly learned how difficult partnerships are, especially when you both don't have any cash and you guys aren't bringing separate experiences to the table.
Sure.
And so I could tell that was not going to be the thing for me. He had different values and different wants than what I wanted. And I said, you know what, you take the business. So he took the business, and then I started another business. So I started Jered's Plumbing and Heating, and I knew absolutely nothing about running a business. I didn't know how to get customers. I didn't know how to brand myself. I didn't know how to price my services. I knew I didn't even know I needed a bookkeeper. I didn't know how to hire people or pay people or any of that stuff. And so I ran it for a year. And at the end of the year, I would look back on my P&L and I made more money if I just would have worked for somebody else that year. So I went back to work. And then I'd work for a year and I'd get really sick and tired of working for people because that's how I am. And so I started my business a second time and I did it for a year again. And so this time I was like, okay, I'm going to be slightly more expensive because I actually want to make some money this time. And so I'd like work like double the hours I would at a normal job. And then at the end of the year, come back and look, and I made like half the amount that I would make if I just went to work. So I did that twice. Excuse me. And then I ended up going back to work another time. And I worked for about a year again. And just me being me, if work slows down at all, I'm always the guy, for some reason, they wanted to keep on the job till the very, very end. They didn't, or keep me employed until their next job, even though they didn't have any work for 2 to 3 months. And that is not my cup of tea. I don't like sitting around doing nothing. I got to have something to do. And so I just quit again. And, I was working out of the plumbers and pipe fitters union hall, and I went down to the union hall and I said, hey, you got any more work for me? And they said, we got nothing. We are dry as a bone. And I thought, oh, snap. Okay, I guess I'm starting my business up again. So I started that plumbing business for the third time. And this time I was like, okay, I know I'd be looking on Facebook. I can see that there's plumbing businesses that have like 30 guys or 40 guys or 50 guys. There's even businesses that have like 200 or 300 employees. I'm like, there's got to be a way to do it. I just have to learn how those guys do that. And that's when I went and found my first like coach or mentor. I found him on the internet. I was searching plumbing business coaches and I
can I stop you real quick?
Yeah.
You're in the flow, but yeah. I love this. Okay. Third time's a charm for you, right? So
third time's the charm. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the listeners out there, before we go into this deep dive, I think it's extremely critical that you had this open mind and open vision saying like, hey, I can do more. This is the third time. I realize I'm reviewing my P&Ls. Like I could work for someone for what I did for try 1 and try 2.
Yeah.
But I know there's people doing it who have 30 guys, 40, 100, 200.
Yep.
That critical part right there was you found a mentor.
Yes.
Right. So
changed my life.
I love that. And can you kind of do some 1, 2, 3 steps before you kind of go into that pathway of like, you said you were deep diving, just online researching. How did you find that right person and who is that? And then kind of leading into the story.
So, I mean, the whole reason I was never happy working for somebody else is I love my freedom. And when I worked for somebody else, I wouldn't have the freedom to do things the way that I wanted to do it in the time frame that I wanted to do it. And what I didn't know at the time is that I didn't have money freedom either, because I never made enough money to have money freedom. Anyway,
two freedom, time and money.
It's a time and money freedom. You got to have both. But luckily at the time, like I had thought that the easiest way to get freedom is to live incredibly simple. So I was like minimalist before minimalist was cool. I had a 850 square foot tiny house that my wife, 2 kids, and 2 dogs lived in.
Wow.
Our cars were paid off. I didn't have any debt. Like I had a little bit of money in savings. And so I started researching for a coach, right? I'd see these guys on the internet. I found Facebook groups, I think is what I first found.
Okay, cool.
Like industry specific Facebook groups. And these people would post pictures of their companies with 30 guys. And I thought, okay, it's possible. And so I started searching. Man, I don't even remember what I was searching, but I came across the idea of getting a business coach. And that's something I'd never thought of before. I didn't even know that existed. And so then I started searching plumbing business coach, and I found one. And I thought this guy looks funny. I don't know if I trust this guy. He seems kind of sleazy and slimy, but I was at the point where I didn't want to go back to work. I definitely wanted to make this thing happen. I wanted to go for it. And I was still dreaming pretty small at the time. I thought maybe I'll have 3 or 4 guys out in the truck and I won't have to be in the truck anymore. And that'll be the life for me. And so I hopped on a sales call with this guy, and he told me the price, and it was $2,000 a month. And at the time I was making like $6,000 a month. And so it was a third of my income. And I had just quit my job, and I didn't, at that time I didn't have any income. And I'm thinking, okay, this is a lot. Like, that was a lot of money to me at that
Totally.
point. And I said, let's do it. And I paid him my $2,000, and I immediately called my brother and I said, dude, you're not going to believe what I just did. He goes, what'd you do? I said, I'm paying $2,000 a month for coaching. He goes, you're insane. And I was like, we'll see. We'll see. I'm either insane or it's going to be awesome. One of the two.
I love it.
Luckily it was awesome. It was the program I got in. It was a very basic program, but it taught me just the basic fundamentals of business of, hey, it costs this much to run a business. If you want to stay afloat, you have to charge more than it costs. Like, that simple idea of knowing what it costs you to run your business and then charging accordingly. So many people just call the next guy, the next plumbing business over and say, hey, what are you charging per hour? Or what are you charging for a water heater replacement? And they don't actually know how much it costs them to replace a water heater. And so they're just winging it. And that was me. When I first went into business, I called shops, and they're like, I called one shop. He said, hey, we're $155 an hour. And I thought, that's insane. And then I called another shop, and they said, we're $105. And I thought, cool, I'm going to charge $100, and I'm going to get all the work, and I'm going to make all the money. Well, it didn't work that way. I did get all the work, but I didn't make any money because I wasn't charging enough.
Charging enough to make.
Yeah.
Man, I had a restaurant. I've been to multiple restaurants now, but I remember my first one where I had to learn the hard lesson on food costs. I can't compete with, I had a pizza restaurant at the time, and I was trying to price competitive to Domino's, and realized that I couldn't do it with what I was doing. So yes, same lesson. I was curious because I think there's so many people out there that were in the predicament that you're in, that know that they don't know what they don't know, and have considered getting coaching, but at the same time they don't want to get ripped off.
Yep.
What's I know you did, just went for it then, but now that you're even wiser than you were at that point, what would you tell someone today when they're considering trying to find a coach, no matter whatever industry they're in, but if they want someone to help them reach the top of their industry, what are some of the qualifying factors that you would want people to consider when looking for a coach?
I mean, I guess I would look and see if they've had successful people come out of their program before. And then my thing now is from then on, if there's a coach that offers something that I think I want to learn, I buy it, because typically the cost of the coaching compared to, even if you just learn one thing, like you spend $10,000 on coaching and you learn one thing, typically that one thing makes you way more than $10,000. And the chances that you're going to learn one thing in a coaching program is pretty high.
Right.
Now, I've bought coaching programs where I'm like, okay, that was not worth the money that I spent on this coaching program. But it's like anything else in life. You buy some and they're lame. You buy some and they're really good. I'll tell you a story of some lame coaching. I spent $100,000 one year to get a personal coach, and I would get one-on-one meetings with him. This guy was way more successful than me, seemed to have his life completely figured out. And I hopped on meetings with him, and I was really excited about it because there was some things that I was struggling with, like how to organize my time. And at the time we were struggling with culture in our business, and this guy seemed to have it figured out. So I paid him $100,000, and I had 12 meetings with him. And I started talking to him, and I started realizing this guy's just flying by the seat of his pants. He doesn't really know what he's doing. And even, I had like 6 meetings with him, and I never had another one. So it's probably the most expensive one-on-one meetings I've ever bought. But even that, I paid $100,000 for that. But the lesson that I learned from that was that this guy is way more successful than me, like way beyond me. and he's flying by the seat of his pants. Like, he's the only reason he was successful is because he just went for it. And he went for it with a tenacity that most people don't have. And he was all in, even though he didn't have it figured out, even though he didn't quite know what he was doing, even though, all these other things, he just went for it. And that's what made him successful. And when I look back on my own experience, that was kind of my experience when, I decided to quit my business, and I just went for it, and I learned along the way. And had I tried to like go and figure all this stuff out and try to learn all the pieces, number one, I never would have put it together. But number two, I never would have started. I would have been so freaked out about failing. And the reality is that any success that I've had maybe a few successes, but I've had a lot more failures. I think Dave Ramsey says, I stand on a mountain of failures. My success sits on a mountain of failures. And that's totally true.
That's awesome. No, I definitely like that. So tell us what made you, bring us up to the present with Dude Wash. What got you into the Dude Wash business after the background in plumbing and HVAC?
So I had my plumbing business, and I never answered your question about getting it to run remotely. We can come back to that one if you want, but
yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
because I was writing down. I'm like, okay, so massive, third time's a charm, ripping. Just I got to find a mentor. I know there's people doing it, so looking industry specific. Actually, just kind of organically sifting through Facebook. Probably also where you're kind of finding leads too, seeing where people are at. Find a business coach specifically within the industry. So then you find a plumbing business coach, and then understanding like intrinsic value. For you kind of hopped in, but utilizing that same analogy right there is you were all in, even though it was like you were investing a third of what you were making, and to layer that you were quitting your job. So it's like now you're just shelling out as much money.
Yes, that was very accurate.
Yeah,
very accurate description.
But now, like having this understanding of, you could be the lowest price, but you're actually going to be having a ton of work and still losing money, right? That's like a huge lesson. Yeah. And then as you're taking that, I love it. Like if there's something you want to learn, you're doing it. You're finding a coach for it.
Or I'm just doing it and failing at it and learning from my failures.
Oh, I think a lot of mine.
I think what a lot of people, they fail at even when they hire a coach is they hire a coach and they kind of outsource their thinking. I see the business owners do it with their marketing as well. They'll hire a marketing company and they're like, okay, that's taken care of. I don't have to think about it. When in reality, you're the business owner. It's still your responsibility. And so it boils down to they just don't take time to actually sit and think about what they have going on and sift through. I'm a big fan of data now because I can sift through data and come up with conclusions that are accurate versus guessing on things. Whereas in my early entrepreneur days, I would just guess. And now I've learned to go sift through data to get the right answer.
Are you using specific like project management tools or CRMs to find and really analyze the data that you're coming across? And are there some things that are applicable, with some cross functionality into other service-based businesses that you would recommend?
Oh yeah. I mean, any service-based business I have, I'm going on Service Titan. It's
Service Titan.
It's
okay.
the best CRM possible. I've seen all the other service-based CRMs. I've seen the inside. They all suck. None of them give you the data that you need to be able to run your business. Probably one of the most important metrics that you can measure in a service business is efficiency.
Sure.
Because if you're, there's a bunch of different types of efficiency, but there's, we're essentially selling time. Every business, they buy and resell stuff. That's what a business is at its core. Sure. And in a service business, you're buying skilled labor and you're buying materials and you're repackaging it and you're selling it to the customer. And each person that you buy and resell has a set amount of time. Yep. And the more time that we're able to sell from that person, the more efficient we are. If we sell half the amount of time, then we have to charge our customer more to make up for that. And so then sales become hard, conversions become hard because our prices are so high because we're so inefficient.
Mm.
But even that, I call that global efficiency. It's like, how much time did my guys actually work versus how much time did we actually sell the customer?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to maximize that.
So then what are some things that you've noticed have worked well in your businesses, or that can be translated across other service-based businesses to get those acquisitions and the conversion rates, higher, so that efficiency, follows in suit?
So probably measuring efficiency.
Okay.
So the efficiency we like to measure is what I call job time efficiency. And it's basically, we bid, like over the course of a month, we bid 100 hours worth of work and we completed it in 100 hours. That would be 100% job time efficiency.
Okay.
If it took us 200 hours, we're at 50%. My sweet spot is it needs to be 80% or higher. We need to be accurate on our bidding and accurate on actually doing the work. Then we're going to go maximize how many global hours we can sell after that. And just focusing your field labor, letting them know what their job time efficiency is so that they're aware of how they're doing and tracking that KPI for them.
I was about to say, are you running KPIs and creating quarterly bonuses for your guys and girls that are working for you, and just showing these individually?
Yep.
As measurable?
So we measure quite a few KPIs.
Okay.
Probably the biggest one is just revenue produced, right?
Makes sense.
And then it's,
do you have specific sales guys that are just focused on selling, and then or you utilize that, you maximize the skilled labor and sales falls into that?
I have always chosen to maximize the skilled labor. Cool. and run a model that's called selling technicians.
Okay, cool.
Now I've coached a lot of companies that have sales technicians and install technicians. They might have like 10 guys, and 4 of those guys are a lot better at converting jobs than the other 6. So they'll go convert jobs, and if they convert a job that's over 2 hours, they pass it on to an install technician who's really good at installing, but not good at, I'll say selling, but it's really just communicating value.
What the off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like what services to maximize the services that are going to create the best solution for that customer at the end.
Exactly. And probably the second thing, like the second best thing you can do is, track revenue, track efficiency, but then give a commission to your guys. And a lot of people think commission drives, slimy sales techniques and selling people things they don't need and all this stuff. And I think that comes down from the top. If you're that kind of business owner, that's the kind of guys you're going to produce. So don't be that kind of business owner. First of all, run an honest, good business where you wouldn't sell anything that you wouldn't sell to your own grandmother.
Right. Sure.
Curious, how often because I know you, the way you said your sales, your employees were also doing the sales. How often would you have like a one-on-one review with them to make sure that they're doing everything the way you're doing it? Because obviously you drive them to success. So I figured you have some kind of review process to, let them know if they're hitting or not hitting their KPIs.
Yep. So we would have what's called a technician scorecard that we would print out. We'd pull them in for a meeting, and it would have all their KPIs. It would have things like attitude, vehicle cleanliness, are you upholding our uniform standards, spot for notes, and then a spot for the manager to sign and a spot for the technician to sign. And we keep those on file so that we can keep reviewing them because we want to see improvement in areas if they're not hitting our minimums.
Right. So is that a monthly thing?
So to me, that depends on company size. If you're a small company, I would do that weekly.
Okay.
Sure.
Because you have the time and the capacity to do that. And typically when you're a small company, the money is the tightest part of the business. And so you need to stay on top of keeping your technicians performing. Otherwise, it's going to cost you probably more money than you have. Once you start getting bigger, then I'd push that to biweekly. And then the longest I would probably push it out would be monthly. Once you have, cash flow and a rainy day fund set aside to where if a technician was off for a month, it doesn't kill you. Sure. That's when I would start doing that.
Awesome.
No, I think that's huge. So big things that you're tracking is revenue, time, and then what was that third major KPI?
So we're tracking revenue. We're tracking time efficiencies, both global and job time efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
We're tracking material efficiency. How
Oh,
much
yeah.
material did they bill out for versus how much material did we actually buy? Because you can lose all your profit just by buying more materials than you sold on accident. So you have
That
to track
makes
that
sense. Mm-hmm.
And then we're tracking close rates, we're tracking average tickets, and we're tracking average opportunities.
Awesome.
Those are probably the big ones.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Man, this has been a fun ride so far for this first start.
Yeah, I think now we need to go ahead and take it back to how you ran your business remotely.
Yeah.
To then how you sold it, and then bring us to Dude Wash. That way we.
Yeah, I think Dude Wash. We got to get on another.
Well, episode. I think he's got to bring us to it. Then we'll take it to part two. So yeah, those things, remote running to the exit to like how you came up with the Dude Wash idea.
Yeah. So remote running your business is business is just essentially I guess a well-run business. A good book you can read is Built to Sell. So I read that book early on, Built to Sell, and then the book All About Pies. I can't remember the name of it right now. It's about a lady who bakes pies and how she loves baking pies, but then she makes a business around pies and she starts to hate the business. Anyway, it's all about systemizing your business. Really good.
I know what you're talking about.
E-Myth Revisited.
There it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I read that book, man, and it just I felt like that guy was talking to me. I was like, wow, this is crazy. It was cool. But so running a business remotely, it's just a matter of putting processes and systems in place. So you have to come up with a way of doing every single thing in your business. Any function that your business does, there has to be a written way that you do that thing. Now, once you write that down and train your team on that way, and then put the people in place to manage the way that you do stuff, all of a sudden your business can run without you. And it takes a little bit of scale, right? You couldn't have 2 guys working for you and then expect to leave your business. You need to have enough revenue coming in to where you can hire these high-level management people to run your business for you. And then you give them the systems and the operating manual basically to run your business for you. And you say, this is how we run our business. And then obviously you have KPIs that you're tracking and they're measuring those KPIs. And then the way that I did it is I had one high-level manager in my plumbing business that would report to me, and we would have just one meeting a week. We would hop on Zoom and he'd have a big old spreadsheet with all the KPIs that he would have to fill out. And we would go over those together and we would talk about them, and we would come up with, typically there's a problem in your business. It's never perfect. And so we would come up with an action plan to solve the problems that we were having. And then we would have another meeting next week and we say, okay, how's this going? We would either just keep going or we would adjust and go from there. That's basically it. You just need to come up with a way that you do stuff and keep that way incredibly simple so that it can be followed.
No, I think that's incredible. So I think the foundation of that is understanding, one, hiring the right person at that high level manager position, but giving them the keys of how you're doing it. How did you come up with that quote unquote operating manual?
Trial and error.
Okay, cool.
Like, oh, that didn't work. Let's not do that anymore, right?
So that operating manual, when you're having these weekly meetings, and you're reviewing the KPIs through KPI tracker, and you're coming up with action plans, reviewing and adjusting.
Yep.
That's not a set SOP. That is a fluid SOP. It's like
a fluid thing.
Okay, cool.
And that's where the business owner has to have a high level understanding of
everything.
Because when you're looking at a business, right, you have all these people and these things going on in your business, and you have all these KPIs you can track. None of these KPIs show up on your P&L.
Right.
Like you go get your profit and loss. That's the report card of how well you did at your business.
Yep.
And you have to have the skill of saying, okay, these KPIs make this happen on my P&L.
Sure.
If I see this on my P&L, it's likely a lack in this KPI. So let's go check that KPI and see what's up, and then know what action out in the real world actually is going to make that KPI better. That's going to lead to a more profitable business. That's the skill set that a business owner needs to develop ultimately.
Sure. So if I'm new to the business and I'm kind of scared of sheets and key performance indicators and things that are really, you're screwed. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. No, I love it. I love it.
That's what I think. If you don't know how to use a Google Sheet, deal with it. You got to go figure it out. Like,
got it. Okay.
Up on YouTube and figure that stuff out.
No, I think it's incredible what you're doing, and I personally love data. My W-2 is a data company, so so that's like you're speaking directly to me. But for some of the listeners, I know a lot of times people they'll get a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet and in an email, and they're like, oh gosh, I don't even want to touch this, So I love
to me that's just stupid. I mean, it's just dumb. Like I've had like people that I think are underperforming and some people that I think are awesome, and then you go look at the data and it's completely different than what you thought. The guy that you thought was awesome is actually the underperformer, and the guy that you thought was underperforming is actually one of your best guys. And if you didn't look at data, you would never know.
So do you think a lot of that happens sort of with nepotism in the business of hiring people in? It's a small, when you're a small business, you're hiring friends, you're hiring family, and you're like, oh, this person's got a great personality. And so a lot of times you kind of turn more or less a blind eye, and you're like, okay, I know there's problems in the business, but it can't be caused by X. It has to be by this person who's like, not doing much or not seeming to add value at the meetings or any type of extra conversations or questions or answers. And then next thing you know, that person that's doing it, they're coming in, they're clocking in, they're not missing anything. They go to the job, they're efficient.
Yep.
And the guy that's or lady that you think is doing really well, it's that face person.
Yep.
That personality is like actually distracting them from the growth.
Yep. Typically what we see in like service-based businesses is that owners tend to focus on the people that produce the most revenue, and they neglect to notice that they're at a 40% close rate. So they're blowing through 60% of their jobs, and you're paying $200 a lead to get those calls coming in, and this guy's blowing through them. And yeah, he's producing a bunch of revenue, but could you have two guys to replace him and actually convert those leads better? You would actually make more money.
Makes sense. And that's actually a great example of why data is so important.
Exactly. And then, a lot of times like the biggest producer in your company, he's usually the biggest hit to your culture as well, in my experience. Yeah. And because they don't have data, they're scared to get rid of this guy, even though he's really hurting their culture. And it's a downward spiral from there. To me, data is it's the king, because you can look at it. You can take past data and you can say, what would have happened if I made this change 12 months ago?
Sure.
Where would I be today?
Right.
You can see a positive change and you can go, oh, well, I better make that change today because that's what I want to happen 12 months from now.
Yeah.
That definitely makes sense. So tell us, how'd you exit that first company? Who was the buyer, and what was like the multiple you were able to sell it for?
Yeah. So some dude bought it from Seattle. So being in Alaska, there's a big push in the trades for private equity to come in and buy your businesses. And I sat down with a bunch of private equity guys, and none of them wanted a business in the middle of Alaska. They want to buy opportunity. So when they're looking at a business, they want to be able to come in to a good market that they can expand, or they want to come in and buy a business that's underperforming that they can make it perform well. Basically, if they can take a $3 million business and turn it into a $6 million business overnight, they'll pay you a better multiple on that $3 million business because it's going to be worth way more in a year when they turn it into a $6 million, right? So my business was not in a market where they can do that. And then my plumbing business was already extremely systemized and profitable. So we were at like top tier, like profits you don't normally hear about in a plumbing company. And so nobody wanted to touch it. So we ended up selling to a guy out of Seattle who wanted to buy a plumbing business. He heard it was the coolest new thing. And we got a 4.66 multiple on EBITDA. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I like that. And just for the listeners, to not be so high level here for acquisition size, kind of explain the EBITDA and what that means to have.
EBITDA is like fancy word for profit.
Yeah.
You take the profit and you add in the things that the business was paying for the owner. That's probably the easiest way to explain it.
No, so, I agree. Yeah. And so then how could you take that conversion and then make it sellable to, you're saying you're sitting down with a lot of private equity guys and this person in Seattle, like what got the handshake and closing the deals outside of just the numbers and deciding this, that, and the other?
Yeah, I think it was the numbers were a big portion of it. The fact that I'd been running it remotely for so long was a big portion of it.
Okay. I was wondering that.
The fact that, they asked for operating procedures and we had written operating procedures. We had them in a program called Trainual where you could see that all of our employees had been trained on the operating procedures. That was a big deal. And then just them getting to meet, they actually did like a shop tour and got to meet the general manager that I had there, and having those high level people in place that are actually, good at their job and impressive when they get to go meet them. They're like, okay, this is a well run, well thought out business with a history of really good profits with really great people in place. I'm willing to buy this thing.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. And when you're doing these, like different types of softwares, you're integrating all of these into the business, like Service Titan. You definitely doted on them a little bit ago, and now you're saying you had Trainual. I'm imagining that kind of goes back to what you're talking about with this operating manual that stayed fluid with that high level manager running these action plans, and that's just kind of like a living document essentially that's just growing and becoming more and more efficient until you can sell it.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So before we close this one out, let's get to present day. What made you decide on Dude Wash, and tell everyone what's Dude Wash all about?
Yeah.
So I have another company, or I still have this company. It's a online coaching company where we coach plumbing business owners how to run their business. This ties into the story, so bear with me.
Yeah.
I had one of my good friends came from Alaska and moved down to Pensacola about a year after I did.
Oh, sweet.
And at the time we were selling what's called a high ticket coaching program. So we'd sell, a year's worth of coaching services for anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. And with that, you need a sales team. And so I had a sales team with sales guys, and my buddy was the sales team manager. In the meantime, we'd been working on my personal brand. So if you go look on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or whatever, you can search the Jered Williams Show and I'll pop up. I'm probably the most viewed plumber on Instagram right now, would be my guess. We get anywhere between 8 and 18 million views a month across our social media platforms. And I don't say that to brag. I say that because with that, we were able to get a lot of attention to our coaching program. And so I never liked charging plumbers for information that they need to change their life. And so what we did is we kind of flipped the coaching model on its head, and we said, let's charge $99 a month to these plumbers and give them what we were giving them at $10,000 to $15,000 a year. And we got rid of our entire sales team. And because we have the ability to get so much attention, we could actually sell enough of that to bring in more revenue, giving the product away for next to nothing. So it was a really cool business move.
That's awesome.
And it just fit with my values a whole lot better. I really believe that like well-run businesses are a really good way to change the world. And so in my coaching program, our mission statement is basically, changing the world one plumbing business at a time. And so the more plumbing businesses that we could get a hold of, then the more that fits with our mission. And so if we can run our business in that way, then we're going to. So that said, I had my best friend. He was in charge of my sales team, and I said, man, I really need something for this guy to do now. And I just happened to watch a YouTube video of somebody, I think it was a Cody Sanchez. You guys ever watch that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She was interviewing Rolling Suds, the CEO of Rolling Suds.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
It's the nation's largest pressure washing franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like franchises, but I saw that and I was like, hey, man, my buddy Joel can do that. So let's start a pressure washing business. I called him up on the phone and I said, we're starting a pressure washing business. He said, all right, here we go.
Let's do it.
So we got the licensing. We started researching like what's in the trucks, what is pressure washing, how is it done, sent him to some training, got the trucks down here. We went and did a bunch of free washing for quite a few months just to get good at washing, make sure we're providing a really high level service. And yeah, that's how we got to owning a wash company.
Dude, I love it. I love it. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here. And I know that's what you're doing. And Jered, he was super, super humble in that. He's got, tens of thousands of followers on social, over 100,000 on Instagram. Like he said, hitting 8 to 18 million and really changing lives, one business at a time, one plumbing business. And same right here, like we can get that. And you guys are taking some of these really, really awesome tips. I mean, I've already written down like 5 pages of notes just because it's like, boom, awesome tip. Boom, awesome tip. Oh my gosh, this is a golden nugget. This one is awesome. So, man, this is so cool. I love the model of making it attainable. $99 a month. Anyone can do that, especially for the value you're bringing. That's
yep. Cool, yeah, I like it.
No, dude. Well, I think now that we know the origin of Dude Wash, we've got a lot of SOPs, a lot of things tracking. I'm super excited to hop into this next episode, really understanding content creation, what got you into that, diving a little bit deeper into that online coaching, because you kind of just breezed, we have this online coaching, we sold high ticket, and then we changed the model. I want to dive into that. I think it's amazing because what you're doing, like you said, you're changing the world one plumbing business at a time. So if anyone wants to find you, I know you just mentioned it, but let us know the best place to stay.
I don't know. You can search the Jered Williams Show on Google, and I think I pop up.
Sick.
That's probably the easiest. Yeah.
Okay. And then it's a place where you drive more traffic. You want to get people to subscribe to your YouTube or your Instagram or your Facebook, or it's all interconnected.
Whatever they prefer. I don't care either way. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Sam, what about you?
Yeah, so definitely check out our website, theeliterealestatepodcast.com. Please subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, The Elite Real Estate Podcast on YouTube. And then you can reach out to me personally at Sam_FloridaMan on Instagram. We would love to check out any real estate deals you have for us in the Escambia County area around Pensacola. So definitely shoot us some real estate deals to look at. We are actively buying lots in Pensacola. And then Will, where can people reach out to you?
EliteRealEstatePodcast.com. Check out our stuff. Subscribe to our YouTube. That would be massive. We're just trying to find amazing individuals. Right now, we're pretty hyper localized in this Gulf Coast area, so it's really great. If you're a listener, and we'd love to have lunch with you guys. Jered's an amazing guy. I feel like he'd do the same. It's just really cool culture. Love this area, so really excited. Let us know if you have anything. You guys can always email, text, put in the contact us. Sam and I are going to be the ones replying back to you. So cool.
All right. We'll see you guys for part 2.
Catch you in the next one.